Please don't read that manga, and it's not a clickbait. In search of an interesting story for you, I opened Pandora's box, and I can say with confidence that the found story is much worse than Balmasa. This manga is so cruel, and can be traumatic for certain readers, that I could not put some frames, even with censorship. No, even more. Even the verbal description of some actions, I will have to either simplify or not mention. All the conclusions on the classics will be after the retelling of the manga, but for now, I will give a small introductory Killer Instinct. This is a small manga of 6 volumes. Obviously, the story took off, because it got a live-action adaptation, as well as a sequel. If the first part comes in, then I will definitely make a video for the second one. The tie here is as follows. 7 people wake up in an abandoned school. There is no way out. All the windows are covered with tin sheets. In one of the classrooms, there is a large clock that counts down 7 days. There is no food, but there is water. On the top floor there is a room in which a knife is attached to the floor on a chain. There is a clay pot next to it for cooking food. Will the prisoners be able to hold out for 7 days without violence? Before we start joining the cult, the club, subscribe for more, and let's get into the retelling. The beginning of the manga introduces us to our main character Siguro Rager. A guy calls friends to find out if someone has seen his girlfriend Marie. Suddenly the doorbell rings and he rushes to open it as fast as he can. On the next page, we see a boarded up old building. Then the text on a black background explains to us who the poisonous insects are, and that for a long time, people put them in an isolated space. There these insects are fighting with each other to survive. The last survivor will be the basis of poison that will serve to create a strong curse. This rite is called Kodoku. Reiji wakes up and finds himself in an abandoned building with strangers. The first thing they all decide to introduce themselves. The first one is Izuku Yukitoshi, 28 years old, just a man with an average salary. The second one is Nakanuchi Toshio, 22 years a factory worker, that is, he works at the 3rd Akana factory, 21 years a hostess works. Negisaki Teichi, 24 years old, unemployed. Then there is Ikiyama Yumi, 21 years old, still a student, and Reiji, 20 years old, is also a student. The last Michik, God forgive me, for 9 years, the heroes pay attention to the fact that their shoes and leather things were removed from them. First, they try to figure out if someone remembers how they were dragged here. In general, most of the smart guys were given something to smell or try. While the redhead was unconscious, the others walked around the school building. There are no glass in the windows, but they themselves are covered with metal plates. If you suddenly have a question, will such a building not arouse suspicion from the outside? Then I will immediately answer. Obviously it will not. All exits are sealed. There is no food, but there is water. There are cameras in every room, and even in the toilets. In one of the rooms has a countdown clock that is locked 7 days. Upstairs is a made-up room with a clay pot for cooking, and a meat cleaver nailed to the floor with a chain. While there is a discussion of the circumstances, we are shown that the fact that a person with an explosive character. Yukitoshi appears as a reasonable person of Michik, as a quiet Teichi alarmist who looks at the girl unnecessarily. While everyone is looking around, the factory workers began to attack the windows, which in general turned out to be meaningless. Looking at Yumi, Reiji starts thinking about his girlfriend Mari again. Meeting her gaze, he runs away, saying that she looks like her friend. Having gathered together, the hero begins to summarize the collected data to the question of what they want from us. The answer comes immediately: murder. Considered Yukitoshi add that besides this and cannibalism. After all, shoes and leather goods were taken from them for a reason, but because they can be used to cook food. This guy looks like he is quite impressed with the work done by the kidnappers. We notice it not only mine, but everyone else's. After some time, the factory worker explodes again because the fat man keeps repeating that he is hungry. And also because Tosha is infuriated by the camera. He's going to break that. Yukitoshi is asked not to do this because you never know. Suddenly this will be followed by some kind of punishment from the kidnappers. Tosheva is surprised that Yukitoshi is so calm and begins to suspect him of being somehow involved with the kidnappers. The hostess agrees, adding that he seems to be enjoying everything that is happening. Yukitoshi says it is. You see, he is an occult nerd and is delighted with such a situation. Then Yukitosha tells that what is happening reminds him of Kodoka. Let me remind you that this is when insects are thrown into a jar and they fight until there is only one winner left. The winner becomes the basis for the curse. And apparently, the kidnappers want the abductees to kill each other and consume each other for food until there is only one left. However, in theory, if they last for 7 days, then let them go. Everyone present is beginning to realize that they are enemies for each other here. Teichi starts to panic. A conversation begins about what will happen next. Reiji finds himself thinking about how to kill opponents. Justified panic also appears in the young, because how can harmless girls cope with guys? The hostess calms her down. The idea arises that if we get rid of the rabbit factory worker, who is rightfully considered the strongest here, then the problem with murders will be solved. The fact that such a conclusion is not happy, so he leaves the room. Everyone else takes a break to be alone with themselves. The girls go to the toilet. There Yumi praises Akana-san, and says that the student is cute. Here the first one immediately tries to kiss the hostess. The girl recoiled, not expecting such an outcome. Yumis rips off his sleeve and hands it to his new girlfriend to wipe it off. Meanwhile, Tosho, who was left alone, is on the stairs trying to digest what is happening. And immediately, they begin to tell us the background of the factory worker. Based specifically on this page, and those that will appear in the background of the following, it can be concluded that everyone has their own mortal sin, and it was according to him that he was selected to participate in the Kadabku. That it's anger. In prehistory, us immediately show him as a man who was a dick to me before I was in school. Due to the fact that his order was delivered late, he pours water on the waitress in the diner and tells her to get on her knees. At the same time, he is still dissatisfied and leaves the rustic with his lady. In a bad mood, they go to a love hotel. Suddenly a man's complete anxiety passes by them at high speed. This triggers our rage and he gives evidence. After all, as it is, the man decided to show impudence and overtake the factory worker. In the car, a worried man with his wife and a sick child with a fever. All this man wanted was to get to the hospital as soon as possible. For this reason, he was in a hurry. The fact that he begins to pursue him, so that he regrets that he decided to provoke him. The first car skids, and it flies into the van at full speed and explodes. The fact that he escapes from the scene of the crime, and later learns that the father and child died. And the woman is in critical condition. While that show is plagued by signs of the past, Akana comes to Yuma. She hugs her and offers to unite. She says that she wants to survive together and, in principle, always be together with Yumi. The hostess begins to weave her plan of who and how to use it to survive. At this time, Yumi, who is full of joy from what Akana likes, meets Tosha on the stairs. Since she seems to be like a kind soul, she immediately rushes and helps him. Tosha is already attacking her and using violent acts of a sexual nature. Akana and Reiji go in search of Yumi as she has not returned for a long time. At this time, Reiji begins to feel more and more sympathy for the host. They find Yumi with Tosho on the stairs. Running all. Yokatoshi chastises Salakanen, causing a dispute in a raised voice. Kakani gives him a bream and promises to kill him if he doesn't shut his mouth. The one that laughs, they say, try if you have the guts, but knowing that you will die next. Everyone departs, leaving the Vicodin alone. Yukitoshi warns him that the weakest one is the one who stays out of the group. Exploding again, the fact that he starts shouting to Yumi that everyone around is hypocrites, and in which case he will be able to protect her. After returning, the others began to discuss how to deal with Toshu now. Since there are no laws here, they can only rely on themselves. While they are discussing what to do, Yukitoshi notices that there is a cord on Reiji's jacket. He asks to get it so that in case of anything, Tosho can be tied up. Toshu's scream comes from the corridor. Go to hell. I'll kill all of you, all of you. He shouts. Yukitosha asks the others not to approach the factory worker and suggests going to the toilet in pairs. Fatty immediately offers his candidacy to accompany Michiki. Well, it's been 20 hours since the start of the Kodoka. Reiji feels tired, so he goes to rest. Yukitoshi also leaves, but finally says about Kana that she may become Toshu's next victim and asks to be careful. Yumi hears it. Since Reiji is good, he left the shoelace, they say, he does not want to carry such things with him. While Fatty is trying to spy on the note-taker again, Yumi finds out that, although Akana denies it, she is also scared. The student waits until the Akans and everyone else fall asleep, and then takes a shoelace and goes to Toshio. She tells him that she agrees to the union if he protects her. At this time, Reiji wakes up to go to the toilet. He's going upstairs. In the same place, there is no need for us. The guy tries to reach the hatch in the room, but to no avail. And then he hears screams. Yumi decided to take advantage of the weakness Toshevo after what had just happened and trying to strangle him. That's just the factory worker is stronger than she thinks and immediately takes the initiative. He starts beating the student and decides to use the rope himself. Seeing this picture, Reggie couldn't help but intervene. He runs into Toshio, but gets it too. The fight moves to the landing. Yumi ties her shoelaces on her hands, and while Tosho tries to throw Reiji off the stairs, she tries to strangle the jock again. While Toshu beats both of them, and Yumi asks her savior to hold the legs of the factory worker tightly. She herself, throwing the rope around Tosh's neck, jumps down. So, it took less than a day for the first murder to happen. The others came running at the noise. There they find Yumi hanging, and Reiji holding Tosha. Reiji is trying to prove to everyone that it was Yumi who killed Tosha. Reiji is shocked by what has happened, and he tries to convince himself that it's not his fault. And he also keeps thinking about his girlfriend Marie. Yokitoshi kind of praises Ranji, saying, "You tried so hard to kill him, it's really impressive." The body is taken all together to the second floor, where the cleaver is located. Yukitoshi justify the choice of location, because the body will begin to decompose and stink, and in this room they will hardly go down. Everyone is leaving. Reiji wants to know if the girls need help, but finds them when they changed clothes. While Michiko wrings out the sleeve Yumi pulled out so that Okana can wipe the blood from her face, Reggie goes to the toilet. Yumi says that she is happy because now Okana is not in danger. The hostess is a little scared of such a revelation, and she also runs off to the toilet. There she first meets Michik, who calms her down and pats her on the head. The fact that an adult is calmed by a child brings Akans to their senses. She starts thinking about how to survive again. First of all, we need to solve the main problem, the problem of food. And she has a plan to solve this issue. We switch to Reiji. Seeing naked girls, I went to the toilet for the purpose of self-indulgence. Akana comes to him. She starts having sex with him. Yes, that's the way to get food. To spur on Reiji's further sustenance, she says she loves him. Well, the kid is being led. Meanwhile, Yumi begins to suspect something is wrong. While intercourse is taking place in the toilet stall, Yukitoshi comes inside. Having supported the classic toilet resin scents, he leaves. After him, the hostess also leaves the booth, offering Reiji to repeat it somehow. Going downstairs, Sigurd will see how the fat man is pestering Michik with questions about what kind of anime she likes. Seeing him, Michik runs away and hides behind our main character's back. The belly does not like this situation, and he begins to rage. Reiji walks into a room where Yumi and Yukitoshi are talking about something. While Lolly Tip continues to rage, Yumi looks blankly at Reiji and tells him, "You're disgusting. I thought you had a girlfriend." The main character does not like these words. Here we are included in the background of Yumi. Her mortal sin is envy. Her story is simple. No one, not even her parents, paid attention to her. But there was one such person in high school after all. Love and so on started a relationship. One day, Yumi saw that her love was cheating on her and hears that Yumi has finally already fallen behind. She is still trying to figure out the relationship, because of which her half falls under the train. So Yumi, with an empty look, rushed somewhere. Student personifying jealousy begins to pursue Range, stating that he is not worthy of punishment. She rushes, grabbing our main character by the throat. Pushing her away, he tries to escape. Surprisingly, everyone has disappeared somewhere. No one comes to help. Using all the same ill-fated lace, Yumi tries to do the same thing with Ranger. For a few pages, the story switches to the outside world. Yumi's parents came to the police with a missing daughter report. Detective Komato takes over the case. Meanwhile, Reiji hits Yumi on the tit and runs away again. The search for help leads him to a room with a cleaver. He takes a knife for self-defense, but loses consciousness due to fatigue and hunger. In a dream, he sees his girlfriend Maria. When he wakes up and sees hands reaching out to him, he immediately attacks. It's Yukitosha who manages to recoil. Reiji realizes that the weapon in his hand is bloody. Then he sees pools of blood in the room, and Yumi's body is on the floor in the corridor. People believe that Yumi tried to kill Reiji due to the rope marks on her neck, and also believe that Reiji did not kill Yumi, because there is too much blood, and there is no trace on him. Lalakonchik begins to panic, and thinking that it was Toshu who came to life to take revenge. So 2 days have passed, 2 of the 7 people are already dead, so who will die next? Yukitosha gets Tolstoy hooked on panic. Fat runs away. Reiji leaves with Mishka. Yukitoshi and Akans bring Yumi's body into the room with Toshi. Yukitosha admits that he hinted to Yumi about what Akana was doing with Reiji in the toilet. In other words, that it was he who pushed her to this action. Akana slaps Yukitoshi and starts accusing him. The second one, pointing out that they are no different because Akana decided to use her sexuality to manipulate others. And in order to get protein from Reiji, Yukitosha suggests that Akana now feed on them. Kostas is infuriated, but then she gets a strong blow to the face from Yukitoshi. Picking up the knife, he cuts his wasps. After leaving the room, he approached Rage and told him to be careful of Sakana, because she was trying to eat him. Then those chapters that have not been translated into Russian begin. Reiji finds Akana all in tears and with her hair cut off. She refuses to tell me what happened. And then Reiji suggests focusing on surviving. They embrace. It was the 3rd day. Everyone is hungry and exhausted. Lalakonchik begins to break. He pounces on Michiko, but then they're Ranji and gets his foot on her face. Having done this, he declares that Tolstoy needs to control himself, especially because Michiko is a little girl. He is perplexed. It's over, he says. So why not do what you want? While Akane is thinking in the toilet about what she needs to survive, Ranji offers the boys to sleep. She lies down next to her, and thinking that she is a really cute child, the main character comes to the idea that he must protect her. Going crazy, Lalakonchik goes upstairs, and meanwhile, Akane meets Yukitoshi face to face. Once on top, Fat, trying to decide who to eat. The choice falls on Yuma. At this time, Reiji wakes up. Michiki is no longer around. While something is being prepared on the top floor that I can't bring myself to call cooking, we see Akana and Yukitosha begin to have sex. Passing by, the main character looks inside and sees treason. So, Akana ate. Upstairs, Lalikonchik also began to eat. After leaving the room, Akana and Yukitoshi meet Triji, who politely waited for them to finish. While they figure out the relationship, during which Yukitoshi offers a threesome. Upstairs, someone finally went crazy, stuffed his belly to the brim. Now he wants to play with Michika. It's time for Teichi's backstory. His mortal sin, who would have thought, is gluttony. In short, they laughed at him and mocked him at school, calling him a creep. Since he is a useless person, he could not even work normally anywhere. He blames anyone for all his failures, but not himself. One night, late at night, he meets a little girl in the park on the playground while eating. She spoke to him, calling him a brother. He treated her, and it turned into the fact that they began to meet so regularly, just sat and ate together on the same day. To the brother's question, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Gluttony offers her to become his girlfriend. It's too early for a little girl to think about such things, and she is well aware of this, and therefore refuses. The fat man grabs her hand tightly. Frightened, the girl says that he behaves terribly. This triggers Tolstoy two memories, and with screams "You are not like them," he pounces on her, hugging her neck. There was no sexual assault. Despite the terrible graphic frame, firm which I had questions to the author, at least it was not brought to this. Teich doesn't know what happened next. He ran away and stopped hanging around on the street. No one knows whether the girl was rescued or not, and the police did not look for him. But that's the way it began to grow his creepy side. And we return to the present moment, where he lies in the upper room and dreams about Mitch. Also on this page, we see a mysterious man, who through the camera looks on. Meanwhile, the conflict in the love triangle is growing. Yukitoshi shares with Reiji what Akana's plan really is and starts groping her with Reiji. The second one doesn't like it and attacks Yukitoshi. The schemer is delighted with what is happening, and the main character begins to realize that, like a conductor in an orchestra, this guy has been manipulating the others all this time. Reiji grabs Yukitoshi by the throat, but Yukitoshi gets a kick out of it, too. Remembering Maria, the protagonist releases the victim. But immediately Yukitoshi takes the initiative and starts beating Reiji. During the beating, the main character has flashbacks where someone asks him for help. Yukitoshi's personality begins to frighten Reiji. He pushes him away with his foot and then pounces on him again. They fall down the stairs together. Yukitoshi loses consciousness. On the next page, they show us the same detective on whose watch there is the same attic report as at school, so we find out that he is involved in this story. He closes Yumi's case. Reiji, Michika, and Akana make sure that Yukitoshi is alive. Michiko gives him a rope, realizing that he is dangerous, and does not tie him up in the toilet. Reiji clearly says not to release Yukitoshi under any circumstances. When he enters the room, he sees that there are 4 days left. Reiji starts crying, wondering why all this is happening to him at all. Meanwhile, the driver has already prepared food for Michika, and for some reason attacks Toshio's body. Akane comes to Riju again. She kisses him, and coitus begins again. In the process, Michik comes to them, and the adults kick her out to be alone. Michik is sitting on the stairs and crying, when suddenly something falls from above. In front of her, it turns out, the head was sinking. The end of the distraught fat man takes her to the room from which he came. The story switches back to the detective. He smokes on the beach. An unknown person calls him, and says that 4 days have passed, thanks him for his complicity, and offers a place in their row. The detective refuses. Remembering Renji's girlfriend, he says, "It's not long left, Marie. You want to see Sigwara Reiji, don't you?" Reiji is lying euphoric on the floor. He thinks about food, and starts thinking about Maria. Since he lived alone, she started coming to him to cook. At one time, it ended up with this. A chain of memories leads Reiji to a frame where a broken female body is seen lying on the ground. He wakes up when Akana, having tied something around his neck, began to strangle Reiji. He pushes her away, but still finds himself in a difficult position, because his hands are tied. She apologizes, because that's the only way a woman can kill a man. But to bring to the initiated, it is not possible. Teichi appears from behind. He hits her on the head with a wardrobe, and then drags her up by the hair. It is firmed that he intends to cook a dish for Michik. The host beats up Tolstoy and runs away. She calls Mitch, worried that he could have done something to her. After finding Toshu's head, Akane realizes that the unemployed man has started eating. "I made her a promise," Teichi shouts, "that I would bring her the best food. She's waiting for me." We are thrown back for a while. Michika is in the room with Tolstoy before eating. She's crying. He gets nervous that she's not eating what he's cooked. Suddenly, Michik calls him a brother and says that he is a real bully. Teichi falls to his knees and begins to apologize, asking her to love him. Michika replies that she doesn't like the smell. She says that in order for her to eat, the meat must be fresh. The girl gives him a promise: if it is Akana meat, then she will become his bride. Akane Tolstoy tells everyone about this, and then attacks her again. Host tries to escape, but due to exhaustion begins to fall. Pulling herself together, she runs to Yukitosha and aunties him, but receives no help as he is still unconscious. Teiichi grabs her and takes her upstairs. Starts the background arcane and its deadly sin lust. Despite this, of all her stories seemed to me the most normal. Akana has a younger brother who is sick with something. Since childhood, they have been bullied by usurers for their parents' debts. One day, she came home with the happy news that she had finally paid everything. At home, she is met by a beaten brother and a bandit from those to whom she used to owe. Of course, the torment will not end with debts. He tries to force the Akans to do you know what, but then the younger brother attacks him with scissors. A fight ensues and her brother throws himself off the balcony with the bandit. His last request was to live. However, the brother managed to survive, but the forecasts are disappointing. Most likely, he will not come out of a coma. And Kani said she would come every day. And she came until a woman came up to her on the street and asked her to drink something. We are in the present. Fat, brandishing a butcher knife, attacks the harnesses. Since all men are the same, the hostess decided to use the only arrow that is in her quiver sex. First, she kisses the cannibal, and then she unzips her fly and starts. Well, in general, Teiichi did not expect this, so he falls into a stupor. Taking advantage of this, Akana intercepted the cleaver and slashed. Meanwhile, Reiji regains consciousness. Not understanding why they did this to him, he goes to Yukitosha. Not understanding who can be trusted, our hero wants to unite with him. At least, the man's intentions are clear to him. On the stairs, he sees Toshio's head. When he gets to the toilet, he takes water and offers it to Yukitoshi, but he is conscious and untied. Hands quickly close around Reiji's neck, and we are transported to the upper floors. Akane meets Michik. Who the hell is this? Asks Akana. In the following pages, Yukitoshi tries to drown Reiji in the toilet. Sigura apologizes and says that he came to save him, as Akana tried to kill him. This forces Yukitoshi to let go of the main character. The conflict between them is still on pause. Michik calls his brother, crying and trying to shake the body. Akana does not believe in this game, and then the child shows his true face. She admits that she forced Tolstoy to attack her because Akana hurt Reiji. Some kind of fiercely strange dialogue begins, in which Akane convinces Michik that she is too small to compete with her in this regard. Then the sport turns into a fight, in which Michiko shows himself as a powerful fighter. Finally, Michik takes off his hairpin, from which a needle appears and pierces the eye on the back of the head. Seeing terrible hallucinations, where all the dead are trying to eat her alive, Akane begins to scream. Exhausted and mentally tired, Reiji is still confused in his feelings. Suddenly, he and Yukitoshi hear a scream from above, and rush headlong to the source of the sound. In a form that I can't show you, Akane is walking down the corridor. Yukitoshi catches her and tries to revive her. Reiji comes into the room and sees a monstrous and bloody picture, which I can't show again, from under the tarpaulin. Michiga, who allegedly hid all this time, looks out at him. She rushes into the arms of the protagonist and tells in tears that Teiichi tried to eat Aiken. They enter the classroom where Yukitosha has started courting Aiken. After shouting at Rage, he throws him out of the room and then tries to figure out what happened and tells the victim that he will not let her die. In any case, there are no his hands. Yukitoshi's background, his mortal sin is pride. As a child, Yukitoshi collected insects. He was interested in such things as Kodoku. And for a very long time. During his school years, he collected his jar of insects and waited for the winner to appear. At that time, they had a very bad teacher who mocked Yukitosha all the time, beat him on the ass with a ruler, and humiliated him in every possible way. One day, Yukitosha brought his jar to school, and the same teacher asked her. Subsequently, the jar was thrown into the trash. Yukitosha found her and saw the winner in his Kodoku. The teacher started to drive on Yukitosha again, and he finally answered him. The altercation began. Yukitoshi took the jar and smashed it on the teacher's head. The winning spider ended up on the neck of the second one and only bit him. An accident occurred. After that, the guy's obsession with occult things became even stronger, and in the future, he will become involved in the death of the girl. We switch to Detective. He is on the phone with the organizers of the event. They are happy with how Kodoku is going and the candidates that the detective picked up. When he finishes speaking, he looks at the photo of Maria and contemptuously calls the name of the main character. He gets up from the table and approaches the female deceased body. Gently touches his face and says, "Your dad did something for you. This honey cake. He's your favorite, right?" In an abandoned school, Yukitosha can't bring himself to sleep. After checking the Akans, he goes outside, where Reiji is sitting. Thinking that the guy is asleep, the occultist goes to check the clock to find out how much time is left. But Reiji hasn't been sleeping all this time. He came into Akan's room and said, "How could you try to kill me?" Meanwhile, Yukitoshi sees that there are 2 days and 10 hours left until the end. For some reason, it was as if feelings were beginning to arise in him. He understands that Abakan is thinking more and more often. His thoughts are interrupted by Michiko, who comes into the classroom for hours. Yukitosha tries to talk to her, but the girl runs away. Then he rushes after her. Pinching her throat, he demands an answer what happened, Sakana. In the meantime, we switch back to the detective. He goes to the girls' club and gives her a flash drive. They watch a video together where a cannibal from an experiment cuts Tosha. This girl is a wife and mother who survived a car accident after a race with a factory worker. And along with this, the police began to follow the detective. And we're going back to Michika and Yugatoshi. Adults begin to beat the child earlier. He noticed an unusual puncture on Akana's neck and guessed that it was some kind of weapon. Although there is nothing else in this building except a cleaver. Seeing the hairpin on the tap's hand, he guesses that the needle is in it and takes this weapon. But he just can't open it. He grabs Michik again and demands to tell him how he can save the Akans. Yukitosha begins to hear voices, and this forces him to release the child by kicking the adult and reminding him that it is Kodoku. Michik escapes. Yukitosha returns to the dying Akana. Along the way, he ponders Michik's words and remembers why he is here at all. But at the same time, he can't help but think that for the first time in his life, and only next to Akana, he felt like a human being. Opening the classroom door and running inside, Yukitoshi sees how Reiji, our main character, applies sexual violence to the dying Akana. From what he saw, the occultist is beside himself. He starts beating Reiji both in the face and on the pench handle, so much so that he even looks at him and oculates. Yukitoshi suddenly attacks Aiken and starts strangling her with the words that it's all this damn poisonous woman. Meanwhile, beaten Renji tearfully apologizes to Okan. Finally, Akana puts her hand on Yukitoshi's face. Renji starts screaming, calling Yukitoshi a monster. Although we all remember what the main character did with the dying woman a couple of minutes ago, the occultist is not going to stop. He sits on top of Reiji and begins to strangle him. At this time, he talks about how there are two ways to strangle his victim, a quick way and a painful one. And he promises that his victim will experience pleasure, being on the fine line between life and death. However, it was not possible to bring the matter to an end. Michik appears from behind and smashes the lid of a clay pot on his head. At first, she tries to find her hairpin, but it's nowhere to be found. Then she realizes that she will have to retreat. And under Yukitoshi's comments that he will kill them all, the girl barely drags Reiji's body away. Reiji comes to his senses, and he and Michika are in the toilet. He understands that he needs to pull himself together and protect the little girl. She continues the performance in front of him, showing herself as simple and defenseless. The main character decides that he will kill Yukitoshi for her if he comes to them. Yukitoshi left the room and took the needle clip that had been kept in the mouth of Toshio's head all this time. Reiji barricaded the toilet doors. While Yukitoshi is trying to figure out how the hairpin works, Michiko wakes up and sees an exhausted ranger. The guy tells her that he will protect her because she still has to live, meet different people. No love, and so on, and so on. Michiko then kisses Ranger on the lips and starts undressing in front of him. At the end of the chapter, we see Yukitoshi, who finally figured out how to release the needle from the clips. The story switches back to the detective, who is now shooting at targets. He remembers Marie gave him the ashtray and said that going out with this guy. "How dare you do this to my daughter?" he says and shoots the target. 24 hours left. Yukitoshi kisses Akan's corpse and says that they will finish Kodopo together, and then picks up a cleaver. Seeing the last frame, we understand what Yukitoshi did. And in parallel with this, some kind of tin is happening in the toilet. Saying that he wants Reiji, Milchik kisses him again and confesses his love. Reiji almost breaks down and gives in, but he manages to pull himself together. But his words, "I don't want to hurt you and without forcing myself to behave like an adult," only make Michik angry. And she hits him in the stomach and then runs away through the window above the door. In her head, she begins to trigger in a flashback about how Akane claimed that a child could not defeat an adult in a battle for a man's attention. While she's freaking out, Yukitoshi appears from behind. Michika tries to escape, but to no avail. Yukitosha catches her and then sticks a needle in her neck. Michiki's backstory begins her mortal sin greed. Here we learn that she is from a village in which there was a strange religion. It's not really revealed, but Kodoku came from there. Michiki had two friends. They and other children were locked up by the sect for 1 month. At first, the older friends protected Michika, but in the end, she is the only one who survived. A month later, she was admitted to the hospital. After Kodoku, she discovered that her body had stopped growing. Given that it was previously written that the age is unknown, there is at least hope that she is older than we thought. Although I'm even so uncomfortable. Yukitoshi picks up Michiga and takes her somewhere. There are 18 hours left until the end. Reiji regains consciousness and goes in search of Michiki. Along the way, he finds a severed lock of hair. He's scared, but he can't back down because he wants to protect Michiga. On the way to the corridor, he sees a mountain of bodies, on top of which Akana Ryoji flies into the classroom. and attacks Yukitoshi. Now the knife is in his hands. The elder notices that Ryoji has changed thanks to Kodoku. Then he shows the main character a flower and a needle with a neurotoxin that Akana was injured with. As proof, he suggests looking at what exactly the same symptoms are now in Michik. Reiji refuses to believe that it's Kodoku's fault and is still determined to save Michika. Suddenly Yukitoshi turns to the camera, asking, "Are you watching, Ranbi? I am grateful to you for what you have arranged." The last bloody battle between Yukitoshi and Reiji begins. At the end, Yukitoshi falls into the flower of the Ranji group. He defended with his hand, and that's why he got the advantage, because Yukitoshi came close enough to strike. Slashing with a cleaver, Ranji deals a critical blow. Finally, Yukitoshi says that Reiji still has a chance because the toxin needs time to start spreading. Taking the will in his fist, Shiguru Reiji cuts off the meat with the affected area in his hand. Meanwhile, Detective Father is furious that Reiji is still alive. But before he has time to do anything, those policemen who were watching him appear. They want to talk, but the detective tries to escape. So at full speed he flies into the table. We're going back to an abandoned school. Reiji cauterizes the wound after removing a section of his arm. Then he picks up Michik and drags him into the room with the clock. Until there's 5 left on the clock, he takes care of the wounded woman, laid her down, and spoils her with water. They wait for the timer to finally reach 0. Reiji is happy that it's all over now. He leaves the wounded woman for a while to check the door. When he leaves, Michika starts spitting blood, and the ghosts of the past are already beginning to visit her. The ghost reminds her that there is something the king has to do. A joyful Reiji reaches the door and realizes that they are still closed. No one came for them. And we switch outside, where the police are investigating the disappearance of people. The search leads them to the very woman who the detective showed the video. But she doesn't tell them anything, hinting that the law didn't do anything earlier to ensure that justice prevailed when she needed it. In the last frame, we see a detective who has received terrible injuries, is unconscious in a hospital bed in delirium. He repeats the name of the main character. In an abandoned building, Reiji realizes that he has reached his limit. Somehow he gets to the classroom with the clock and finds a laughing Michik. She says the timer itself never mattered. It was needed only to create hope for salvation. At the same time, she admits that she is with those who organized all this. That Kodoku is a ritual that was organized so that she could become king again. Then we get a flashback in which we see that Yumi went to the same student, was killed Michika when Reiji was unconscious. Then the guy get a legitimate question, why Michika didn't kill him. Moreover, I saved it repeatedly. Reiji flies with his fists, but he can't hit the child, so he hits past until he finally runs out of strength. Becoming, he grabs her hair and tells of Michiko released it. In response, she says that only one can get out of here and that he will have to kill her. After these words, Michik takes out a shoelace and throws it on the floor. The shoelace from which all these murders began. Reiji shouts that he is different from the others, but immediately begins to see Yukitoshi. The elder reminds about the toxin, saying that Michik is no longer a tenant. Despite this, Shigure Reiji puts the shoelace in her pocket, stating that she will never stoop to this, and will wait for the police to find them. Michik is not satisfied with this arrangement. Just as Reiji is about to leave the room, she shouts, "You are doing the same thing as when you ran away from the Martians," with questions about what Michik knows about Maria. Reiji pulled Sumaro out of his pocket. The prehistory of the main character Shigure Reiji begins, and his mortal sin is laziness. He was a pretty ordinary child from a not very prosperous family. Once he heard how unflattering a girl who likes him speaks about him. When he gets to a party with friends, he finds out that another girl likes him, and her name is Marie. She is not his type. And the relationship with her was only because there was no other candidate. Plus, Marie lived with him, cooked for him, went to work, and had sex with him. All this time, Marie claimed only one thing: all she wants is just to be happy. One day, they come to an expensive restaurant, and there Marie introduces him to his father, the same detective. Despite the fact that the acquaintance goes well, the detective pounces on Reiji as soon as Marie leaves them. "Get out of my daughter's life if you're not serious." One day, Mari informs Reiji that she is pregnant. She tries to convince her boyfriend that everything will be fine, but Reiji, who was raised in a not very loving family, was not ready for this. At first, he tries to convince her to have an abortion, but Marie refuses. A little later, we find out that Shigure Reiji, our main character, has kidnapped Marie. After tying her up, he took his girlfriend by car to an abandoned building. There he left her. Reiji says he will let her go if Marie changes her mind about the baby. He brought her food and repeated his request. One time he didn't visit her for several days. At some point, it dawns on him that he loves Marie. "What are you doing?" he asks himself. Realizing this, he rushed to the old building, but Marie is not in the room. In the present, he says that this is the end of the story. Marie disappeared, he couldn't find her. Michika insists that Reiji remember what really happened. Seeing a small hole, he goes there. Reiji finds Maria, who has fallen through the floor down, and was hanging on one branch over the river. The guide grabs his girlfriend by the hand. She says now we can help ours. But he doesn't finish the sentence. Reiji lets go of his hand. Obviously, he let go of his hand, thinking that Marie would tell the child. But finally, when he let her go, she said to our happiness. On the next page we see a dead Marie. Remembering, but not wanting to continue this dialogue with Michika, Reiji quickly rushes to her, throws a rope over her neck, and kills her. But the door still won't open. Reiji's hunger is starting to take over. Thinking of Maria, he remembers her wonderful cooking. He starts eating everything that the girl has prepared for him. But beyond this illusion of Reiji, we see a clay pot filled with something disgusting that Reiji ate with great pleasure. 2 months have passed. The detective is on the mend, looking at the photo of his daughter. He happily declares that Reiji is dead. His flashback begins, where he meets with the cultists. The building in which Reiji kept Marie belonged to them. Probably this is also the building in which the first Kadoku with Michika took place. That's why there were cameras there. Moreover, they also provided the father with the body of his dead daughter. Killing a ranger wasn't enough, so the cult convinced the detective to conduct a Kadoka. He agreed and picked up the participants' 4 posthumous sins, but Yukitoshi he offered to take a voluntary part and lead this process of secrets from the inside. Now the story of Kadoku has disappeared. The main suspect is the cultists who have already escaped. Investigators found one survivor in the building, an emaciated young man, who was hugging a body without arms, legs, and head. The detective hears this report. Reiji in the hospital in diapers in a very exhausted condition. The police find out that the detective is missing and therefore strengthen the security at the Reiji ward. But it doesn't help. The detective finds himself in Sigur's room with a gun in his hands, but Reiji was waiting for him. He kneels down and apologizes to his father. Further says that the survival made him stronger and now he'll never escape. The detective shoots him, but hits him just in the shoulder. Reiji rushes straight at him and grabs his teeth in the neck of the detective. When the police enter the ward, they find the body of a detective and a bloodied Reiji, who turns to Michiki and Yukitoshi. That this was the last poisonous insect, and that now he had finally completed Kadoka. Then there's a frame that hints at a sequel. And now let's talk about the manga itself. Another reason not to read this manga and its history. And the plot here is really weak. So much so that it begins to seem as if the main bet was made on graphics and cruelty. Usually, the horror genre can be divided into 2 conditional segments, horrors, the meaning of which is to scare. Here you can select a segment, since there are different ways to scare the viewer, depending on their, well, let's say, viewing. Western popular horror films try to achieve this effect through screamers. In Asia, more emphasis is placed on the atmosphere and the creation of repulsive images or circumstances. For example, as in the same collection of Junji Ito or Post-Traumatic Radio. Horrors that should convey a certain meaning or tell a story that hides something more behind it. These are plots, behind the screens of which lies the message. An interesting story like for example in The Neck or The Crucifixion of Six. The semantic story, as in the manhwa Bastard or the manga Hans Killer Instinct, is the first variant of the state of fear. He is trying to achieve to shock the reader. Moreover, it seems that the author was going to take a swing at the second option, well, that is, at the semantic one, but simply did not figure out how to do it, although at the same time, he had quite a wide space for maneuver. Social horrors are not just stories about maniacs or psychotic personalities crossing the border of what is permissible. This is a study of human nature, defining the boundaries of its cruelty, and an attempt to understand the moment when a person renounces social norms and his personal basis. The opportunity to see what he was and what he can become is the most convenient and understandable excuse to achieve this goal. But the main problem with this decoy is that there is no research here. We are shown adequate people at first glance, and their images are destroyed almost immediately. There is not a single character who has tried to preserve his humanity, or at least its appearance to the last. The hostess seems to be the closest to this description. Moreover, she is the only one who wants to empathize. But considering that she immediately began to plot, it is difficult. With difficulty, but at least it is given. If we cross out the woe, which in the first half of the manga is not at all, then all the characters in this story are over. Their backstories are weak, but the author does one thing that can be highlighted as a plus. He reveals them all as people with their sins, but through the prism of maximum living conditions, creating a picture of what any of us could go through. And that's cool. That's just everything collapses with the fact that there is no one to associate yourself with here. We immediately either see or understand that something is wrong with the characters, and this is the main problem of the killer instinct after of course excessively violent moments. As a rule, the story should be based on a character who will become a guide between the fictional universe of the author and the reader. He acts as an avatar, allowing us to dive deeper into this world and experience what is happening more personally. Here, it's more like the position of a surveillance camera. I don't want to compare myself with anyone. So we just watch a bunch of people go crazy and start killing each other at the same time, without even trying to find a more or less peaceful solution. Yes, the 7-day clock turned out to be a fake, but they didn't know about it. It would be possible to cooperate and offer to observe the situation first. And in case of extreme necessity, everyone could sacrifice a limb to feed the others as an option for a peaceful solution to the problem. Moreover, an interesting conflict could be created from this. Imagine if, instead of me being afraid of him, let's kill him, someone would sacrifice his hand. And the next day the one whose turn it was would start refusing out of fear. Of course, everyone was instigated by Yukitoshin. But really, among the 6 remaining people who knew that he was enjoying what was happening, no one even had thoughts in their head to try to seize the initiative of the leader and come up with a way out of the situation. Of course not, because, and we return to the previous thesis, they are all finished, and the most finished of them is the main character. The end of the story looks so chaotic and incoherent that it is difficult to take it seriously. Okay, the watch turned out to be just a watch that doesn't carry anything. But initially, the cult's goal was, as Michik said, to get the only survivor to create a curse. If so, why didn't anyone come for the main character? You can see through the camera that the game is over. There is a winner. Why didn't the cultists come for him? He was just left there for 2 whole months. We can say that this is because the cultists had a bet on Minchika's victory, and after her death, that is, defeat, they decided that they could score on the game. But that's an even sillier excuse. It's one thing with other children, but if they put her in conditions where there are adult men of a completely different weight category, then at least theoretically, they should have foreseen such an outcome. Finally, a few words about the picture. In general, it does not stand out in any way among other manga, but the cruelty is shown too realistically. Some even not particularly bloody moments the author manages to convey in such a way that they will cause a feeling of disgust. Especially impressionable people should definitely not touch this story. So, this manga has a sequel. Considering how sick the first one turned out to be, I wouldn't really want to take it up right away. But the choice is yours, because, as they say, the date of hell beckons curiously. So write in the comments whether to retell the continuation. And also leave an opinion about the story itself. Thank you all for your attention. Like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll go while I hug my knees in the bathroom. This is DanZiNinja. Thank you all for your attention.